Hi, my name is Nick, and I will be walking you through how to use the Milesimizer. Um, the Milesimizer is essentially a tool that helps you decide whether or not to use your frequent flyer miles to buy a flight or to just pay it in cash. And the basic premise here is that the frequent flyer miles that you have accrued have a certain value depending on the probability that you'll use them in the future. So we're trying to understand whether that value is greater um, than the value that the cash flight would have. So um, let's basically get into it. So essentially, the question is, should I buy my flight with cash or should I use frequent flyer miles? But we need a lot of data to understand whether this is the correct decision or not. So first, you need to know how much will your flight cost in cash. Um, we can use Kayak.com. That's obviously a great one. For this one, I'll just go to United because we're going to do the frequent flyer mile comparisons in United as well. So here we are. Welcome to the United website. Um, I would like to go to San Francisco, or from San Francisco to Chicago. So I'm going to go ahead and look through this. I'm going to sort by price. And then I'm going to press search, which is off the screen for you all, but I hope you understand. So now we're going to get some results. And for our sake, this is going to be good enough. $384 is what we will consider the nonstop flight cost. So to put 384 in here. And now, how many frequent flyer miles will the flight cost? We can go back to United, do the same search, put my dates in, but instead of looking for price, we're going to go for award travel. And whether you're using Delta or Southwest or whatever, you can specify that you're looking to look for flights that are eligible for award travel. So we'll do that search instead. And we're basically going to compare the $384 to whatever we need to, or whatever our options are in terms of miles. So it looks like all of our options in miles, if we're going to fly economy, are going to be 25,000. Now that's for one flight. So I'll select my 25,000 there. And now I need to select my next flight to see whether I can, what my costs will be there. All right, so it looks like I have a direct option in which 12,000 miles is an option. So I'll add that in. So I've got my 25,000 for my flight to Chicago, and for my flight back to San Francisco, I got it at 12,000 miles. So that's enough. I'm not going to show you my password, but in this case, our number is 25,000 plus 12,500, which is equal to 37,500. All right, and so the fees that we saw in there were, let's just assume it's $25. That's easy enough. And then how many frequent flyer miles do we have in our account? The important part here is that we have more than 37,000. So I'm just going to leave it as we have enough. I'll get into later why it's important that we understand the difference. So now we have how many frequent flyer miles would we earn on this trip. Okay, so we have one more piece of data to go get back from the United flight. And actually, it was given to us on the first time. So we have this distance here. It's 1,846 miles. But we need to multiply that one by 2 because we're going to be doing that flight twice. So it's approximately 3,700 miles that we would get deposited back into our account if we pay for that. So because these frequent flyer miles have some sort of value, Not only do we need to consider that value when we're spending it, we need to consider that value when we're earning them back on our trip. So, finally, as for valuing those miles, the probability that we will use them in the future is a very important part of this. So, this site only gives three options. You have definitely, you'll use these miles, probably, or never. If you're never going to use the miles except for in this circumstance, you should always use your miles to fly. Um, but that's only if after this you'll never use those miles again. Um, but if you were thinking that you might want to save the miles for something in the future, then you need to keep that in mind. So I'm going to leave that on definitely because that gives us the most interesting results, and should be the most typical. So the answer here is that we should not use the miles. We should go ahead and pay for the flight and then accrue these miles to our frequent flyer account. And here is why. So the cost of using miles is 384 plus whatever value we give to these 3,700 miles that we would accrue. I'm sorry. The cost of using the miles is whatever value we give to this 37,500 miles plus this fee right here. So that's equal to 475 according to the Milesimizer's valuation of our miles. And then the cost of flying is $340. So we have our cost in cash up here at 384, but then that we get to subtract the amount of value that we get back from the frequent flyer miles that we earn. So if we look at the value, it's we actually get $44 worth of value for accepting those miles. So that's one example. Let's see how this changes if I will probably use those miles. What we expect is that the value of the miles now goes down. So that makes the cash value of the miles you earn back lower, and the cash value of the miles that you would spend also lower. So we would expect the cost of using miles to go down, the cost of flying to go up. And it does. So if you're not really sure whether you want to use the miles in the future, but you're sure you want to take this flight, this is telling you that you should use the miles to buy this flight. It's a good choice based on the probability that you only might use those miles in the future. And that's typical for the occasional flyer, someone who, or if you're not really dedicated to the brand that you're working with. And then finally, we've got never using the miles, and we'll see that that just makes this an even more obvious choice. You want to use the miles because if you're never going to use these miles in the future, then they hold no cash value for you. So the cost of using the miles is whatever fee you had to pay up front, and the cost of flying is $384. So that's how to use the Milesimizer. You can get to it at fig.moonfruit.com. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a wonderful